Tonight, the family of 13-year-old Stanley Davis III has now filed a wrongful death lawsuit against police officer Mark Sohn and the city of Boynton Beach.
Yeah, that lawsuit comes after the officer involved was fired by the Boynton Beach Police Department in connection with that teenager's death last December. Arlena Salzbank has been looking into that lawsuit. She joins us tonight live with what it says.
Jim, as you can expect, the family says that officer's reckless behavior is what led to their son's death, but they're also claiming that the city knew about Officer Mark Sohn's behavior, that he was a threat and more so a danger to African Americans. Now, it was the day after Christmas when Officer Mark Sohn spotted 13-year-old Stanley Davis and his dirt bike at a gas station. When he tried to pull him over, police say Davis took off down the street at a high speed. Now, Sohn pursued him, and Davis then lost control of the bike and suffered fatal injuries in the crash. The 20-year veteran of Boynton Beach Police Department was fired in August for violating procedure. But this wrongful death lawsuit claims the city ignored Sohn's dangerous behavior for years, citing the death of 2 other African Americans during high-speed chases. Civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump is representing the family and claims Sohn's own file shows a history of complaints about racist remarks and behavior. Now, the family of Stanley Davis III is asking for a jury trial, compensation, and punitive damages.
There's no doubt we are living in a digital era. Teenagers especially are feeling the pressure to share every aspect of their lives online. That's why it's critical for parents to know what is going on behind the screen. Last week, we introduced you to the latest social media craze among teenagers called Be Real and how it may represent a positive trend in social media. But this morning, we are looking into a new concerning phenomenon called digital self-harm. Teenagers are posting hurtful, threatening content about themselves online anonymously, making it look like someone else did it. Then they wait for reaction. What's alarming researchers and mental health experts is that while this type of self-harm doesn't leave physical damage like cutting or burning, the psychological drive behind it is the same and can be associated with suicidal thoughts.
As we've studied this, believe it or not, the prevalence has gone up over the years.
Professor Samir Hinduja of Florida Atlantic University has been studying digital self-harm for about 8 years. His most recent research, published in the journal Child and Adolescent Mental Health, found about 9% of adolescents anonymously posted something negative about themselves online, and 5% said they cyberbullied themselves.
When we've studied digital self-harm, youth specifically tell us that they do it either as a call for attention. They want to see which of their friends are true friends who will defend them. They do it as a cry for help. You know, they're deeply struggling and they just want someone to notice them.
Hinduja says the most disturbing finding was that kids who engaged in these behaviors were as much as 7 times more likely to have considered suicide and up to 15 times more likely to have attempted to take their own lives.
Kids are struggling when it comes to mental health issues, without a doubt. And I would say that the pandemic has exacerbated the impact of all of these issues, unfortunately.
We've seen in the past 2 years, suicidal rates and depression have gone up significantly.
Dr. Idan Alkali is a clinical psychologist specializing in children and adolescents. He's treated patients taking part in this dangerous digital trend.
Why are they engaging in digital self-harm? Because there are thousands, millions of people that are viewing it, and they get that sort of dopamine rush by people seeing it and viewing it. The other part is it's a way of self-injurious behaviors, which borders on suicide.
But even with all those eyes, Dr. Alkali says the downside to the digital world is that it creates a sense of isolation because there's no personal face-to-face interaction. What would your advice be to parents?
I would suggest to have more quality family time together, either playing together, watching a show together, something where there's an experience of togetherness that is not about parent-child dynamic. It's about just being together as a family.
And connectedness is such a huge deal. If I'm dealing with something heavy, it feels like I'm very alone. But if I have positive relationships with pro-social adults, then maybe I'll open up to them. So more conversation, without a doubt, is helpful, and then supporting them.
Yeah, so keep the lines of communication open and don't be afraid to ask questions. They both say that is key here. And it also brings us back to that same underlying theme with online safety. Keep an eye on what your kids are doing.
I think the big thing that we take out of all this is we think that all this social media interaction, that we get to connect with people, we get to communicate with people, but when it comes to someone really needs a connect, really needs to communicate, nothing beats interpersonal relationships. So what are more kind of advice for can parents look for any signs that their child might be doing this?
Well, Dr. Alkali says classic depressive signs can be here, like sleeping too much or not at all, gaining or losing weight, or just anxiety in general, all things that you can watch out for. But at the end of the day, he said, parents, trust your gut. If you think something is off with your child, then it probably is.
Yeah. You about them every year. Scams. They come in all shapes and sizes and different methods to get your hard-earned money. And one Palm Beach County resident lost thousands of dollars in what's being called the grandchild scam. Tonight, our Victoria Cardenas spoke to the victim's son, who says these scammers are getting even more sophisticated. She joins us live tonight. Victoria?
Yeah, Liz, Eric Lieberman says that these scammers are tugging at your heartstrings while also looking to get your money. And it looks like these scammers are getting smarter, involving more innocent people like delivery services for more money.
She pulled $16,000 out of her savings. Then the next day, she pulled another $13,000, which virtually wiped out her savings account.
Eric Lieberman is still wrapping his mind around the fact that his mother fell victim to the grandchild scam.
The whole scam was he got into a car accident, he hit a pregnant woman, he dropped his cell phone and bent down to pick it up.
He says a man claiming to be his nephew's attorney called his 86-year-old mother, asking for $50,000 in bail money. The man claiming to be her nephew on the phone asked she not share this with the rest of her family. After her initial withdrawal, she asked her friends for help on pulling more money out of her accounts. That's when her family became aware of what was happening.
I was pissed off. I was upset. Of course, you're like, how could you fall for something like that? But I get it. She's 86 years old. And, who wouldn't, want to help their grandkid if they really think they're in trouble? And these scammers are good.
And conniving. According to Eric, instead of wiring the money, the scammers told his mother a driver with a rideshare company that offers delivery services would pick up the cash from her house, then deliver it to the bail bondsman.
It actually opens up an avenue for criminals to utilize this service instead of having to have someone who's involved that might be a driver doing this.
As for Eric and his family, they know the money will probably never be recovered. They hope sharing their story will save someone else from losing their life savings.
Something doesn't seem right, or someone's asking them for money, that they should reach out to someone they trust. Don't try and figure this out on your own, because that's how they get away with this stuff.
And as a reminder, never share your personal information over the phone. As Eric says, if you're unsure of the call someone you trust, like a family member or a friend, to verify that call. And I know it can be embarrassing to report that you are a victim of that crime, but it's better to report it and help prevent this from happening ever again.